How are you doing, YouTube? So this is my first video on this channel. It's taken me a long time to actually, I guess, get up the courage to make this channel. It's not going to be a glamorous channel for me. It's actually probably going to be kind of embarrassing at first. There's a lot of stupid things that I've done, a lot of, negative things in my life that I've gone through. Not that I'm bad off or anything. I'm very blessed for all the things that I have, and very blessed that I went through all the things that I went through. But still, to share these things publicly online is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. But yeah, this channel is basically going to be my journey out of depression and out of my alcoholism, right? So I'm becoming completely sober. I've been trying to do that on and off for quite a while now, going on about 2 years. But I'm on really good track now. I know what works for me. And what really helps is I've actually pulled myself out of the very, very deep, dark depression that I was stuck in for almost 3 years. So actually, it might have even been more than that. It took me a long time to admit that I was depressed and realize the symptoms. So it could have been even before I got a divorce that I was actually really, truly clinically depressed. So like I just said, this channel is going to be really based on the past, I'd say 7 years of my life, even though I will make a really long video on what led me up to this channel. And that's going to start very early on in my life. But I'd say the last 7 years of my life have been a real eye-opener for me. I've really changed a lot as a person, and I feel like there's a lot of people going through the things that I went through, especially now after this very large pandemic impact on everybody's mental stability. Being forced to quarantine themselves, and a lot of people went through divorces after they were stuck actually in a house with people that they thought they loved and thought they were compatible with, and turned out that they weren't. But there's just a lot of negative things that happened over the past several years, and I feel like this country is in a very depressed state. So I know there's a lot of people out there that are dealing with that depression side of things, and there's a ton of people out there dealing with alcoholism. A lot of them probably don't want to admit it yet. That's okay. I definitely didn't want to admit it for a long time. And even someone who might not consider themselves an alcoholic or have problems with alcohol, maybe you just want to eliminate it from your life. This might be a good channel for you, because I've been trying to do it for many years now, and I finally figured out what works for me. So, but over the past 7 years, just to give you a brief overview, I could go on for hours about what has happened to me over the past 7 years, but I decided at the beginning of those 7 years that I really didn't want to continue my career at the dealership as a BMW master technician. I wanted to branch out on my own and open my own shop. So this was not an easy decision for me, because I had 3 very young kids at the time, a wife, a brand new house that it wasn't new. It was built in the 70s, and it was new to us, and we were doing a ton of renovations. So renovating my house, trying to start a new business, and having 3 young kids that I had to do a lot of, the actual, what you'd consider normal, like mom stuff. I had to do a lot of that because my ex-wife is a nurse, and she was working 12-hour shifts. So by the time the kids woke up, she was gone. I was the one that would take them to daycare, get them situated for the day, get them on the bus, those kind of things. Pick them up from daycare and make them dinner and feed them. And then also they always wanted me to put them to bed, so that was my job as well, was getting them to bed, getting them situated for the night. So very busy. It was a very busy time of my life, and quitting a solid career with benefits at that time was a huge change in my life, and it was a huge decision. I was definitely scared to do it, but I had to take the leap of faith, and I knew I wasn't happy where I was at, so I did it. I left my career. I well, I didn't really leave the career. I just transitioned onto my own, opened my own business in that same field. And, lo and behold, people love my service. So my business grew very quickly. But during that time, my marriage was just kind of dwindling away. I noticed that my ex-wife was really pulling away from me, and the family, and kind of off doing her own thing. There was no intimacy at all, no relationship. We didn't get to do anything together. So, it was really hard for me, just basically being a family man and being stuck with no intimate relationship in that relationship with my family. Most people, it's nice to, once your kids are in bed, to have that time together regardless of what you're doing, and to be basically a parent and still be married but be stuck alone. It's a very shitty feeling. It's a really, really crappy feeling. But anyways, not going to dive into that too much, but as that went on, went on for about a year and a half. Towards the end of it, I was actually the one who decided that I wanted to get a divorce. I had found out about some affairs that were going on, which was, at that time, believe it or not, at that time, I was so mentally shot from going through, over a year and a half of basically being alone in a relationship that I honestly didn't even care at the time, or I didn't think I cared. Deep down inside, I'm sure it was traumatic for me, but, I had been through so much emotional stress basically at that time that I didn't really care. So yeah, after I separated, after I decided we wanted a divorce, we decided to, pretty quickly separate, and I ended up moving out of the house. And I literally moved out of the house the day that they put the state of Maine into a quarantine status for COVID. So here I am losing my kids. I didn't lose them. I love my kids. They're my world, and I made sure I had them 50% of the time. But being the person that almost always woke them up, always put them to bed, was there with them all the time, did everything with them every single day, losing 50% of that is still tough. So I had to move out, start all over again, right down to buying like trash cans and mops and everything like that, all the basic stuff. I had to start from scratch, and I had to move. Like I said, I moved out when they locked the state down, so I moved into an Airbnb because they couldn't rent it. And then 3 months later, when they, took the lockdown restrictions off the country, the Airbnb wanted to be able to rent their house again. So I had to, again, move and find another apartment. And again, meanwhile, I had a very new business, and the business had only been open for about a year and a half at that point, and now we're coming into a complete country lockdown where people can't drive, and my job is to fix cars. So if people aren't driving, there's no cars to fix. So we slowed down quite a bit. I would say we still had more work than I thought we would have, with all the nurses and doctors and people that actually still had to get to work. We still had enough business to float us through. I did have to get a PPP loan so that I could keep my employee on for that time. So that was, more stress. And on top of that, all this moving and trying to get through a divorce during COVID was impossible. The court system was shut down. They weren't doing anything that wasn't emergency status, basically. And even though we were all situated, we had everything planned out, we weren't debating anything as far as financial stuff goes, it still took a year and a half of going back and forth with the court system just trying to get a court date. And it took us all of 10 minutes on the phone to actually finalize the divorce. So it was a year and a half of technically being married, but being out separated on my own, which is also very tough because women don't want to date someone who is technically married, right? They don't want to get in the middle of that. So I was very alone. It's COVID lockdown, people aren't out, no one's out doing things, everything's closed. Women wouldn't date me because I was still technically married. It was a really, really lonely, sad time in my life. And my only real company on the days that I didn't have my children was alcohol. So that became even bigger of a problem in my life than it already was. So now here I am, alone 50% of the time, over drinking, using that as my companion, slowly starting to drift away from fitness because the CrossFit gym I went to was shut down basically, and I just slowly was falling into a deep depression and had no self-motivation to actually continue my fitness. And so that's a big thing too. Like, once you stop actually getting out there and exercising, that adds to depression. So here I am drinking, which adds to depression, not working out, which adds to depression, getting fatter, which, you know, else adds to less self-esteem. Again, very few women would go on dates with me because I was still technically married, and it was just a snowball effect. So even after the divorce was finalized, I was kind of at this point where I was so depressed and in a dark spot that I didn't want to put much effort into dating or meeting people, meeting new friends, or any of that. I just was in a pretty crappy place. So, you know, I was lucky enough that I could still force myself to go out and do the things I know I love to do, like fishing and going for some hikes and snowboarding and shooting and all these outdoor things that I like to do. I was still forcing myself to do that, but it was getting harder and harder to do. It was almost becoming more and more of a task for me to leave my house, pack up all my gear, go out and do the things, and then have to drive home. And the enjoyment of the activities was not enough to outweigh the effort it took to do them. So I just kind of snowballed, and it took me a long time, I'd say until about 2 years ago, to actually admit that I was clinically depressed. And when I finally admitted it,
in 700 feet, turn
I decided to contact my doctor to see if I could get some medication that would help me.
Turn left.
And that was probably the big mistake that I would say I made. Was the first thing I did was to reach out to my doctor for help. I really probably should have gone to therapy first, but, you know, I didn't really know what to do. So I jumped right to the doctor, right to the medication, like a lot of people do. Put me on Wellbutrin. It just had a lot of weird side effects for me at the beginning, like uncontrollable, like shaking, and just kind of like a very kind of heart-racing, nervous type feeling. And eventually that faded as I took it, but I didn't notice any relief from my depression. So I don't remember exactly how it works, but there are two different types of depression medication. They do two totally different things to your body. And so when I went back to the doctor, told her it wasn't working, she put me on a different medication, the other type of medication, and my body reacted terrible to it. I had so many terrible symptoms. I was nauseous, bowel movement issues. I was like getting to the point where I had no patience, especially with my kids. Like, I found myself getting very angry, and had to like actually pull myself back and be like, you are like losing it. Like, you got to calm down. So I contacted my doctor and I said, you know, I can't take this stuff anymore. It's really interfering with my life. So at that point, I decided to just take a break from the medication and see if I could work on my depression by myself. So I started watching a lot of YouTube videos on, you know, getting yourself out of depression. And then I also was kind of at that point where I noticed major health changes in my life because of the alcohol. Over that course of time, again, I'll make videos on this, but I had gone to the ER a couple times because I thought I was having a heart attack. Stomach pains, which, you know, could have been kidney issues. I can't even tell you how many times, like, I took myself to either the hospital or, you know, the quick care unit, or went to see the doctor, and I knew it was alcohol related, and I knew alcohol was destroying my health, but I just couldn't stop. So during that period, I started, you know, looking into the videos on becoming, you know, finding a way to get out of depression, and also I also started looking into, you know, how to become sober, like motivation to stop drinking. And I found some very helpful videos, and a couple things I stumbled upon. One was meditation, another one was journaling, and weirdly enough, another thing that I actually already have a YouTube channel on is creating bonsai trees, like working with bonsai trees. Something about the act of working with them really was helpful for me. But those are some things that I found throughout my searches on YouTube that helped me. Another thing was actually like changing the decor in my house. I made it more like feng shui, or whatever they call it, where I decluttered the entire house, you know, all the way down to like getting the knives off the counter, putting them in drawers, like really went at it. And it really made a huge difference, you know, coming into a house that felt more like a spa than it did a cluttered living environment. It really drastically changed the way that I felt. So during this time, I had also decided that I really should go see a therapist and just kind of work through any issues that I had buried, because I'm terrible at that. I'm terrible at just like something happens, and instead of reacting in the moment like I should, I just bury it, right? And that's terrible to do, right? You really should release, you know, not in a negative way, but you should release however you're feeling. If you're having an argument, or, you know, if you're in an issue that's causing you stress, you should really vent it out and deal with it at the time, and not just bury it away, because it will come back and it'll get worse. So that was one thing I was very bad at, and I had basically buried all of my emotions over my entire, you know, divorce and all these years. I've just been burying them with alcohol, and I felt like I needed to get to some type of therapist for help. So I actually found a therapist that was, you know, more on the spiritual side, really into meditation and stuff, and I had actually gotten into that quite a bit, and meditation had already started to change my life. And so I thought she would be a perfect fit, and she was. I went there for several months and made really good leaps out of my depression. And between meditation, journaling, changing my schedule up, working on my alcoholism, and working, believe it or not, with my bonsai trees, that was a huge part of it. I have been able to pull myself, I would say, completely out of depression. There's definitely days where I still feel a little unmotivated. I'm sure everyone has those days. But the things that I'm working on now is I'm ironing out my sobriety. I'm not drinking anymore. And I'm trying to get back on the really good schedule that I was in when I was really pulling myself out of depression. I kind of teetered off that a little bit as I kind of fell back into drinking. But now I'm getting myself back into that. And on top of that, really getting back into fitness, getting to the gym, running in the morning, you know, exercising throughout the day, and really trying to use my meditation and journaling to actually get any type of negative feelings or emotion or stress out, and just let it just kind of come out onto the paper and out through meditation, and not just keep it buried inside of myself. So again, I know that was kind of drawn out, kind of a long video, but that was so shortened up. I left out so many details. I mean, I could make probably hundreds of hours worth of film, and I probably will, on different pieces of this. As you know, as I go through this channel, I'll definitely make the videos on it. But for now, I just wanted to give you an idea of what I've gone through in the past 7 years, the point I'm at now. And, you know, if you want to subscribe to the channel, I'd say this channel is great for anybody who's trying to, again, get out of depression, become sober, or they're curious about being sober. if you want to just follow me in my day-to-day life, because I'm going to be doing a lot of that on here, shooting bows, shooting guns, snowboarding, hunting, fishing, hanging out with my kids, doing fun stuff. Maybe you can take you into my shop. I do already have another channel on bonsai trees, so I probably won't be doing much of that on this channel. But if you're interested in bonsai trees, you know, check out that channel. It's Downey's Bonsai. And yeah, I hope people follow along. I mean, regardless, I'm kind of doing this as a live journal for myself, you know? So like I can see where I started. I mean, this is definitely not where I started. I started a long time ago. I really should have started the videos a long time ago, but I'm still kind of in that process of dropping some weight off, getting my health back, getting back into fitness, getting my actual body back into a healthy condition, because I definitely, you know, can still feel the results of over drinking for years. I can definitely feel it in my body. So hopefully with time those will fade, and it's going to be cool to look back and see how far I've come through this channel. And again, I really hope that somebody, at least one person, can get some type of help or motivation from this channel. That's really important to me too. So again, my name is Alex. If you want to follow along, hit the subscribe button, and I will be making a ton of videos, probably at least one every single day, even if it's just a short, and you can just kind of follow along on my journey here. So thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.